Hour 12 arrived like a silent enemy. Half a day had passed since the trial began. The observation room was more crowded now. Other instructors had heard about the human cadet and came to watch. Only 7 cadets remained. 3 Krillians, 2 Vextai, 1 Rendari, and Jihoon. The other cadets looked terrible. The Krillians were barely moving. Their hard shells had cracks in them from the changing temperatures. The Vextai were shaking. The Rendari, whose name was Victor, was lying on the floor of his room. His eyes were closed. He was still conscious, but just barely. Jihoon had taken off his jacket. He tied it around his waist. His shirt was wet with sweat. His face was red from working hard, but he was still moving. When the gravity got heavier, he did more push-ups. When the temperature dropped, he jogged in place to stay warm. When the lights went dark, he kept exercising like nothing had changed. How was this possible? Quinella asked. Her glowing skin was bright with amazement. Humans must come from a very harsh world. Vexthor pulled up information about Earth on a screen. He read it carefully. Earth has one large moon that causes tides. The planet tilts on its axis, creating seasons. Weather patterns are described as chaotic and unpredictable. 7 continents with climates from frozen ice to burning deserts to wet jungles. Gravity is 1.0 standard. 1.0? Kix asked. His crystal body rang with surprise. That is normal gravity. Less than what we have now. This environment should be crushing him. They all looked at the screen. Jihoon was doing an exercise called burpees. He would squat down, jump his legs back, do a push-up, jump his legs forward again, and then leap into the air, over and over, in gravity that was 3 times heavier than his homeworld. The human body must be very adaptable, Dr. Felnara said. She was studying all the data about Jihoon. Look at his cooling system. He is producing sweat across his entire body. This lets him control his temperature better than most species. Hour 13. Hour 14. The cadets continued to fall. Victor, the Rendari, finally pressed his button. His heart was beating too fast. The medical team pulled him out just in time. One of the Krillians collapsed. His body had entered a shutdown state to protect itself. He was extracted automatically. 5 cadets remained. 2 Krillians, 2 Vextai, and Jihoon. The trial system made things worse again. The gravity increased to 3 times normal. The temperature swung wildly every few minutes. Freezing cold, then burning hot, then freezing again. The oxygen in the air decreased. Breathing became harder. The 2 Vextai cadets were named Gormoth and Telvara. Gormoth had stopped moving completely. He sat in a meditation pose that his species used to slow down their bodies. It was a way to survive when things got very bad. Telvara was still trying to move, but her 8 eyes looked empty. She was moving automatically like a machine. Not thinking anymore, Jihoon started talking to himself again. Okay, so if I am doing the math right, he said, breathing hard but steady, I have burned about 14,000 calories. That is like 47 bowls of ramyun. Man, I really want ramyun right now. The spicy kind. With seafood and extra noodles. The instructors stared at the screen. He is discussing food, Quinella said. His mind may be breaking down, Kix suggested. Hallucinations from stress. But Dr. Felnara shook her head. No, look at his brain activity. Look at his vital signs. He is not breaking down. He is coping. Humans think about pleasant things to distract themselves from pain. It is a survival mechanism. Jihoon kept talking as he did squats. You know what is funny? They told us this trial would break us, that it would find our absolute limit. But my cousin Daehyun does overnight hiking trips in the mountains back home. 50 kilometers with a 40-kilogram pack. In January. In the snow for fun. This is basically that. Except I do not have to walk anywhere and there are no mosquitoes. I am calling that a win. Vexthor made his clicking sound again. This time it was definitely laughter. He is comparing our hardest trial to a recreational activity on his planet. He is either insane or remarkably tough, another instructor said. Perhaps both, Vexthor replied. Hour 18 arrived. Gormoth pressed his emergency button. Even his meditation state could not protect him anymore. His body temperature had dropped too low. Medical teams rushed in to get him. 4 cadets remained. Telvara, 1 Krillian, and Jihoon. The Krillian lasted another hour. Then his button activated. His organs were failing. He needed immediate medical attention. 3 cadets. Telvara and Jihoon. Hour 20. Hour 21. The trial reached a full day. 24 hours of continuous suffering. Telvara was still moving, but barely. She was incredibly strong. The Vexti were known as the toughest species in the galaxy. They came from worlds where the gravity was crushing, and the environments were deadly. But even she had limits. The trial system detected that only 2 cadets remained. It increased the difficulty again. The gravity jumped to 3.5 times normal. The temperature dropped to -40 degrees. The oxygen fell to 60% of normal, and obstacles began appearing everywhere. Walls to climb, gaps to jump across, balance beams to walk across. Telvara looked at the new obstacles. She took 1 step forward, then another. Then she fell to her knees. Her 8 eyes closed slowly. Her hand moved to the emergency button. The red light flashed. Ji-hoon was alone. 1 cadet remained in the trial. 1 human. The observation room went completely silent. Everyone stared at the screens. This had never happened before. No cadet had ever been the last one standing. Usually several cadets reached their limits at nearly the same time. But Ji-hoon was not just the last one standing. He was still moving. He looked around his room at all the new obstacles. He stretched his arms over his head, then bent down to touch his toes. He rolled his shoulders. Then he looked directly at the camera. "All right," he said. "Let us see what you have got." He ran toward the first wall and started climbing. The instructors watched in shock. After 24 hours of punishment, in gravity that should crush him, breathing air that was too thin, the human was still going. Still trying. Still fighting. "How long can he continue?" asked the Academy Commandant. Her name was High Marshal Zintera. She was an ancient Therine, and her body looked like it was made of clear crystal. She had come to the observation room when she heard that only 1 cadet remained. "Unknown, High Marshal," Vexthor answered. "His vital signs show he is stressed but stable. He has no signs of immediate failure. By my calculations, he could potentially reach hour 72. 72 hours. The full duration, the theoretical maximum that no one had ever achieved. No one had even come close. The current record is 17 hours and 42 minutes, Zintera said. He has already exceeded that by 6 hours. This human is rewriting history." Dr. Felnara pulled up more information about human biology. "High Marshal, I have been studying human physiology. They are remarkable. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. On Earth, before they had technology, humans hunted by following prey for hours or even days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. No other predator on Earth hunted this way." She showed images of human anatomy. They have external sweat glands covering their entire body. This allows incredible cooling efficiency. Their muscles are built for endurance rather than explosive power. Their tendons store and release energy with each movement, making them very efficient. And their brains produce natural painkillers during sustained activity. The longer they push themselves, the more their brain rewards them. They are biochemically adapted to enjoy suffering. The room fell silent again as they processed this information. On the screen, Ji-hoon reached the top of the wall. He was breathing hard. Sweat dripped from his face, but he was smiling. That same strange smile. "Humans are remarkable," High Marshal Zintera said quietly. "And we have underestimated them." Hour 25. Hour 26. Ji-hoon kept going. He climbed walls. He jumped across gaps. He walked across narrow beams in crushing gravity. Sometimes he fell and had to start over, but he never stopped. He never even slowed down, and through it all he kept talking, kept humming, kept making jokes to himself. Hour 26. That is more than a full day. My grandmother would be proud. She always said our family was too stubborn to quit. Guess she was right. The observers realized something then. They were not just watching a trial anymore. They were watching something that would be remembered forever. They were watching a human show the galaxy what his species was made of, and he was not finished yet. Hour 36. A day and a half had passed. Ji-hoon had been in the trial longer than anyone in the entire history of the Galactic Military Academy. The old record was 17 hours and 42 minutes. He had more than doubled it. Word had spread throughout the Academy. Cadets from all divisions gathered in common areas to watch the live feeds. They watched the human in room 23 who refused to give up. Some were amazed. Some were confused. All of them were impressed. The observation room was packed now. Instructors stood shoulder to shoulder. Medical personnel monitored every piece of data. Even the High Marshal had stayed for the past 12 hours, personally watching this impossible display of endurance. Ji-hoon looked different now. His face was thin and tired. His eyes had dark circles under them. Ice crystals formed in his hair during the cold cycles. His uniform was torn in several places from scraping against obstacles. Blood seeped through bandages on his hands and feet, but he had not stopped moving. He had not pressed the emergency button. He was still going. His movements were slower now. The easy, smooth grace from the first day was gone. Now every movement looked difficult. Every step looked painful, but he kept taking steps. Hour 36, he said to himself, his voice rough and tired. 36. That is a day and a half, 1.5 days. Math is getting hard. Everything is getting hard. But I am not done. Not broken. Just tired. Really, really tired. He was crossing a balance beam that had appeared in his room. His arms were stretched out for balance. He moved very slowly in the heavy gravity. Each step was careful and deliberate. I think my ancestors would be proud, he said. Or maybe disappointed. Koreans are hard to impress. You completed the impossible trial. Okay, but did you get perfect scores? Did you beat everyone else? Oh, you are the only human? That does not count, he laughed. It was a rough, exhausted sound, but it was real laughter. Dr. Felnara was watching his brain activity closely. Remarkable.
He has not slept for 36 hours.
His body has no food reserves left. He is in physical agony, but his mind is still clear. He can still think. He can still make jokes. The human brain is more resilient than we thought. Another medical officer pointed at the screen showing Ji-hoon's body chemistry. Look at his stress hormones. They should be catastrophically high. But they are only elevated. His body is still trying to help him, still producing endorphins, still fighting. High Marshal Zintera watched the human struggle across the balance beam. He will either achieve the impossible, she said quietly, or he will die trying. I am not certain which outcome would be more human. Hour 40 arrived. The trial had been going for almost 2 full days. Ji-hoon had been awake for all of it, moving for almost all of it, fighting for every single second. The trial system implemented its final difficulty level. This level was designed for the theoretical possibility that someone might actually approach the maximum duration. No one ever expected it to be used. The gravity increased to 4 times normal, the highest the system could produce. The temperature began changing every 5 minutes instead of every 30. The obstacles became truly cruel. Walls too smooth to grip, gaps too wide to jump, passages too narrow to crawl through in the crushing gravity. It was designed to force anyone to quit. No being could overcome these conditions through physical ability alone. Ji-hoon looked at the new obstacles. He stared at them for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Not the bitter laugh of someone who had given up. Not the sad laugh of defeat, but the slightly crazy laugh of someone who had gone past the point of caring. You know what? Fine, fine, he shouted at the room. You want me to quit? You are going to have to kill me, because I am not pressing that button. I did not come to space to be average. I did not train for 2 years to give up. I am human. We climbed out of the caves with nothing but rocks and attitude. We turned deserts into gardens. We split the atom. We reached the stars. And you think some cold and heavy gravity is going to stop me? He walked up to the first wall. It was perfectly smooth. There was nothing to grab, nothing to hold on to. It was designed to be impossible to climb. Watch this, he said. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around his hands. Then he looked very closely at the wall. He found tiny imperfections, spots where the surface was not perfectly flat, spots so small that most beings could not even see them. He started to climb. It took him 40 minutes to climb that wall. His muscles shook with effort. His whole body trembled. He fell twice, caught himself on tiny handholds, and continued. When he reached the top, he did not celebrate. He just breathed deeply for exactly 30 seconds. Then he looked at the next obstacle and moved forward. The observation room was completely silent. Every instructor, every medical officer, every cadet watching from other rooms had stopped talking. They were witnessing something beyond a simple trial. This was something fundamental about what humans were capable of when they decided that surrender was not an option. Sir, Vexthor said to the High Marshal, I recommend we stop the trial. He has proven himself beyond any doubt. Continuing only risks his death. Can we stop the trial without his permission? The rules are clear. Only the cadet can choose to withdraw. We can only extract him automatically if his heart stops, if he becomes unconscious, or if his organs begin to fail. And his current status? Dr. Felnara checked her screens. He is approaching those thresholds, but not quite there yet. His body is consuming his own muscle tissue for energy. He has multiple broken bones in his feet and legs. Severe dehydration despite the water we provide. Early stages of hypothermia, but his heart is strong. His brain still functions normally. By medical standards, he can continue. Then we watch, Sintera decided. And we witness. Hour 43. Hour 44. Ji-hoon kept moving. He climbed impossible walls. He jumped across gaps that were too wide. When he could not jump far enough, he threw himself and caught the other side with his hands, then pulled himself up. Sometimes he succeeded. Sometimes he fell. When he fell, he got back up and tried again. Hour 45. He was talking to himself constantly now. Not making jokes anymore. Just talking to stay focused. To keep his mind working, one more step. Just one more. Then another step. Keep going. Keep moving. Never stop. Never give up. Still here. Still alive. Still fighting. Hour 48. 2 full days. Ji-hoon had been in the trial for 2 complete days without sleep, with almost no food, in conditions that would kill most beings in hours. He reached the bottom of another wall. He looked up at it. For the first time, he did not start climbing immediately. He just stood there, swaying slightly, staring up. The medical teams prepared for extraction. This was it. He had finally reached his limit. Then he moved. But not to climb. He dropped to his belly and started dragging himself forward on the ground. The observers realized he was too exhausted to walk anymore. So he was crawling. In 4 times normal gravity, he was crawling like the ancient creatures that first pulled themselves from Earth's oceans onto land billions of years ago. And he was singing, making up words as he went, creating rhythm to match his movements. Keep going, one more try, never stop, never quit, still here, still fighting, still alive. Hour 50. He made it to his knees. His legs were shaking so badly he could barely stay upright. But he was on his knees now, not his belly. Hour 51. He stood up. It took him 5 minutes just to stand. His whole body was trembling. But he was standing. Hour 52. He looked directly at the camera. His eyes were bloodshot and exhausted. His face was covered in sweat and blood and frost. But his eyes were clear. "Hey," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "If anyone is watching this later, if there are other humans coming to the academy after me, tell them something." He paused, taking several breaths. "Tell them we belong here. Tell them we can stand with any warrior from any world. Tell them we are tougher than we look." Then he smiled, that broken, bloody, defiant smile. "And tell them I said hello." He turned back to the obstacle course and continued forward. 1 step, then another, then another. In the observation room, beings from a dozen different species watched in complete silence. Some had tears in their eyes. Some made gestures of respect in their own cultures. All of them knew they were witnessing something that would be remembered forever. A human was showing the galaxy what his species was made of. And he was not done yet. Hour 54. Hour 55. Hour 56. The numbers climbed higher than anyone had ever imagined possible. Ji-hoon was still moving, still fighting, still refusing to quit. His body was destroying itself to keep going. His muscles had no fuel left. His bones had stress fractures. His organs were working far beyond their safe limits. But somehow his heart kept beating. His lungs kept breathing. His legs kept moving. The trial system seemed almost confused. It was designed for cadets who would last 6 to 12 hours, maybe 20 at the absolute maximum. But Ji-hoon had been inside for more than 2 full days. The system kept throwing harder and harder challenges at him, trying to force him to quit. He climbed walls that should be impossible. He crossed gaps that were too wide. He crawled through spaces that were too small. Every movement was agony. Every breath was a struggle. But he did not stop. Hour 56, he whispered to himself. His voice was so rough now that the microphones barely picked it up. 56 hours. That is more than 2 days. 2 full days. Still here, still going. He was climbing another wall now. His hands could barely grip. His arms could barely pull. But he grabbed one tiny handhold, then reached for another. Slowly, painfully, he pulled himself upward. In the observation room, every screen was focused on Ji-hoon. Medical displays showed his vital signs in detail. Every instructor in the academy had come to watch. Cadets filled every common area, watching the feeds in silence. This was no longer just a trial. This had become something bigger. A human, a species that had just joined the coalition, was proving that they belonged, that they were warriors, that they could stand with the greatest fighters in the galaxy. Hour 58. Ji-hoon reached the top of the wall and collapsed there for a moment. His chest heaved with each breath. Frost covered his face. Blood dripped from his hands and feet. But after 30 seconds, he pushed himself up and kept going. Dr. Felnara was monitoring his brain activity. "His cognitive function is still intact," she said with wonder in her voice. "After almost 60 hours without sleep under extreme physical stress, his mind is still clear. He is still making decisions, still solving problems. The human brain is extraordinary. Look at his eyes," another medical officer said. "He is exhausted beyond anything we have seen, but his eyes are still focused. He is still aware." Hour 60 arrived. 2.5 days. Ji-hoon had been in the trial for 2.5 days without stopping. The longest anyone had ever lasted before was less than 1 day. He was moving so slowly now. Each step took several seconds. Each movement looked like it might be his last. But he kept taking those steps, kept making those movements. "How much longer can he go?" someone asked. 12 more hours to reach the maximum," Vexthor answered. 72 hours. 3 full days. Can he make it? I do not know. But if any being in the galaxy can do it, I believe it is him. Hour 62. Hour 64. The numbers kept climbing. Ji-hoon kept moving. Sometimes he walked. Sometimes he crawled. Sometimes he just dragged himself forward with his arms. But he never stopped. He never reached for the emergency button. "Why does he continue?" Quinella asked. Her glowing skin was dim with exhaustion from watching for so long. "What drives him?" High Marshal Zintera answered quietly. "Pride, stubbornness, the refusal to accept limits. These are human traits, I think. They do not know when to quit because they do not believe in quitting." Hour 66. Ji-hoon was crossing a narrow beam now. In 4 times normal gravity, it was almost impossible to balance. He fell off twice. Each time he had to climb back up and start over. Each time it took him longer, but each time he did it. "I am still here," he said to himself. His voice was almost gone now, just a rough whisper. Still fighting. Still going. Not done yet. Not done. Hour 68. 4 hours remained. 4 hours until the maximum duration. Until 72 hours. Until 3 full days. Could he make it? Everyone in the observation room wondered. Everyone watching the feeds wondered. Everyone in the academy wondered. Ji-hoon pulled himself over a wall and fell on the other side. He landed hard. For several seconds, he did not move at all. The medical teams prepared to rush in. His heart rate had dropped dangerously low. His breathing was shallow. His body temperature was falling, then he moved. Just a little. His hand reached out and grabbed the floor. He pulled himself forward a few centimeters. Then a few more. He was crawling again. "Incredible," Dr. Felnara breathed. "His body is shutting down, but his will is keeping him going. Pure determination is overriding his physical limits." Hour 69. 3 hours left. Ji-hoon was barely moving now. He would crawl forward a meter, then rest. Crawl another meter, then rest. His progress had slowed to almost nothing, but it had not stopped. Hour 70. 2 hours left. The trial system seemed to recognize that he might actually complete the full duration. The obstacles began to disappear. The gravity started decreasing slightly. The temperature stabilized. It was as if the system was giving him a chance to finish. Ji-hoon noticed the changes. He lifted his head and looked around. Then, with tremendous effort, he pushed himself to his knees. Then to his feet. He stood there swaying, barely able to stay upright. 2 hours, he whispered. "Just 2 more hours. I can do 2 hours. I can do anything for 2 hours." He started walking. Not crawling anymore. Walking. Each step was slow and painful, but he was walking. The observation room erupted in noise. Instructors were shouting encouragement even though Ji-hoon could not hear them. Cadets in the common areas were cheering. Even the normally stoic Thureen were making sounds of approval. "He is going to make it," Vexthor said. "By all the stars in the galaxy, the human is going to make it." Hour 71. 1 hour remained. Just 1 more hour. 60 more minutes. Ji-hoon could see the finish line now. It was a simple line on the floor at the far end of his room. He just had to reach it, just had to walk to it, but it looked so far away, and he was so tired. 1 hour, he said to himself. 1 hour? I have done everything else. I can do 1 more hour. He put one foot in front of the other. Then again, walking toward that line, walking toward history. The minutes passed. 55 minutes left. 50 minutes, 45, each minute felt like an hour. Each step felt like a kilometer, but he kept walking. 40 minutes, 30, 20. The whole academy was watching now. Every cadet, every instructor, every staff member, all of them watching this one human refuse to give up. 15 minutes. 10 minutes. 5 minutes. Ji-hoon could see the line clearly now. It was just a few meters away. Just a few more steps. He took 1 step. Then another. His legs were shaking. His vision was blurring. His whole body was screaming at him to stop, to rest, to give up, but he took another step. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 1 minute. The whole academy held its breath. Ji-hoon lifted his foot 1 more time. He put it down across the line, hour 72. He had done it.
3 full days.
72 hours. The maximum duration. The theoretical limit that no one had ever achieved. Ji-hoon stood there for a moment, looking down at his foot across the line. Then he smiled one last time. I told you I could do it, he whispered, and then he collapsed. The medical teams rushed in immediately. They loaded him onto a stretcher. His body had finally given out the moment his mind registered completion. He was unconscious but alive. In the observation room, chaos erupted. Not polite applause, but roars of approval. Krillians clashed their limbs together in salute. Silthery blazed with brilliant light. Thurine resonated with harmonic tones. Even the dignified High Marshal was making sounds of deep respect. They had witnessed the impossible. They had witnessed a human push past every limit, break every record, and achieve what no one in the history of the Coalition had ever done. And they knew that the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. 3 days after the trial ended, Ji-hoon woke up in a medical bed. His whole body hurt in ways he did not know were possible. Every muscle ached. His bones felt hollow. His head pounded with pain. Even breathing hurt. But he was alive. A nurse stood nearby. She was a Silthery with soft silver light glowing from her skin. When she saw him open his eyes, she came closer. Cadet Ji-hoon, she said gently. Welcome back. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a spaceship, Ji-hoon croaked. His throat was dry and rough. Did I finish? The nurse smiled. You completed the full 72 hours. You are the first cadet in Academy history to do so. Ji-hoon closed his eyes for a moment. Then he started laughing. It hurt terribly, but he could not stop. I am totally telling my mom, he said. She will still find something to criticize, but I am telling her anyway. The nurse gave him water and told him to rest. Over the next few days, his body slowly began to heal. The doctors said he had pushed himself harder than they thought was possible. He had broken bones, torn muscles, and damaged organs, but nothing permanent. Nothing that would not heal, because humans healed. That was part of what made them special. On the 5th day, Commander Vexthor came to visit. The tall Krillian stood. Beside Ji-hoon's bed, his forearms held in a formal position of respect. Cadet Ji-hoon, Vexthor said. I bring a message from High Marshal Zintera. Your achievement in the endurance trial has been recognized with the Warrior's Mark. This award has been given fewer than 100 times in Coalition history. Ji-hoon tried to sit up straighter, wincing at the pain. Sir, I was just trying not to quit. Yes, Vexthor said. That is exactly why you succeeded. You turned stubbornness into a weapon. You used humor to fight pain. You made being human into an advantage. He paused. We learned something important from watching you, Cadet. Endurance is not just about physical strength. It is about mental will. It is about refusing to accept limits. And in that arena, humans may have no equal. After Vexthor left, Ji-hoon looked at his datapad. He had hundreds of messages. From other cadets congratulating him. From instructors asking about human training methods. From Coalition military officials asking about recruiting more humans. But the message that made him smile most was from his cousin Daehyun back on Earth. Saw the news about your trial. 72 hours? Not bad. Next time we go hiking, you are carrying my pack too. Ji-hoon typed back. Deal, but I am bringing lots of snacks. 3 weeks passed. Ji-hoon recovered fully and returned to regular academy training. He expected people to treat him differently, and they did. But not in a bad way. Cadets from every species nodded to him with respect in the hallways. Instructors used him as an example in their classes. If a human can endure 72 hours, they would say, then you can handle this exercise. The endurance trial itself was changed. The Academy added a new difficulty level above the previous maximum. They called it the human standard. It was reserved for cadets who wanted to attempt what Ji-hoon had done. So far, no one had tried it. But eventually someone would, because that was what warriors did. They saw a new mountain and they climbed it. Ji-hoon also learned that he was not alone anymore. After his achievement, Earth had been contacted by dozens of coalition worlds. They all wanted human cadets, human trainers, human advisors. The idea that humans were weak newcomers had been completely destroyed by one stubborn cadet who refused to quit. More humans were coming to the Academy. More were joining coalition military forces. Humans were spreading across the galaxy, bringing their strange ability to endure suffering and turn it into strength. 6 months later, Ji-hoon stood in a large ceremony hall filled with beings from across the coalition. High Marshal Zainterra stood before him. Her crystal body caught the light and shone like a star. She held the warrior's mark in her hands, a small crystalline symbol that glowed with inner light. This award, Zainterra said in her resonating voice, is given to those who redefine what is possible. Cadet Ji-hoon did not just complete the trial. He completed it so thoroughly that we had to redesign it. He showed us that humanity brings something to the coalition we did not know we needed. The unwillingness to accept limits. She pinned the warrior's mark to Ji-hoon's uniform. The hall erupted in applause. Afterward, during the celebration, Ji-hoon found himself surrounded by other cadets. They all had questions. How did he do it? What was his secret? Could he teach them? There is no secret, Ji-hoon said honestly. I just kept going. When it hurt, I kept going. When I wanted to quit, I kept going. When I thought I could not take another step, I took another step. That is it. That is the whole secret. A Krillian cadet named Vornak clicked his mandibles with doubt. But why? Why keep going when your body is destroyed? When logic says you should stop? Ji-hoon thought about that question. He thought about his grandmother's stories of surviving hard times. He thought about Daehyun's mountain hikes. He thought about every human who had ever pushed past reasonable limits just because they could. Because stopping is easy, he said slowly. Continuing is hard, and humans like doing hard things. It makes us feel alive. It reminds us what we are capable of. He smiled. Plus, we are too stubborn to quit. That helps. The other cadets laughed, but they understood. They had seen what stubbornness could achieve. They had watched Ji-hoon turn a simple refusal to give up into something legendary. Years passed. Ji-hoon graduated from the academy with honors. He became an instructor himself, teaching new cadets about endurance and mental toughness. When he taught, he always told them about the trial, about the cold and the heavy gravity and the exhaustion, about the moment at hour 56 when he could barely stand but kept moving anyway, and he always told them the most important lesson he had learned. Your body has limits, he would say. Biology has limits, but the decision to keep going, that is something else. That is will. And will does not care about limits. Will just keeps moving forward. He would look at all the cadets in front of him. Krillians and Vextai and Rendari and Silthari and Tharine and dozens of other species. And humans too. More humans every year. Whether you are human or any other species, he would continue, if you can find that will inside yourself, if you can hold on to it when everything else is gone, you can do the impossible. You just have to decide that giving up is not an option. Then he would smile, That same defiant smile from Hour 56. Now let us see how far you can go. The human standard became legendary across the coalition. It was not just about physical endurance anymore. It represented something bigger. The human ability to turn suffering into strength, to find humor in hardship, to simply refuse to accept that some things cannot be done. When cadets from any species achieved something that seemed impossible, other cadets would whisper with respect, "They went human." It was the highest compliment a warrior could receive. And back on Earth in a small apartment, Ji-hoon's mother read the news reports about her son, about the trial, about the warrior's mark, about how he had become a legend across the galaxy. She nodded slowly. Then she called him. "I saw the news," she said when he answered. "Hi, Mom," Ji-hoon said, smiling. 72 hours is good," she said. "But did you keep up with your other studies? Your grades are still high?" Ji-hoon laughed. "Yes, Mom. All my grades are perfect." "Good. I am proud of you." Those simple words meant more to him than any award or recognition, because at the end of the day he was still human. Still the boy who wanted to make his family proud. Still the person who refused to give up because his grandmother had taught him that giving up was not an option. He looked out the window of his quarters at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, other humans were heading to the academy. Other humans were joining coalition forces. Other humans were showing the galaxy what his species could do. And Ji-hoon knew that this was just the beginning. Humans had reached the stars and they were not going to stop. They were going to keep climbing, keep pushing, keep refusing to accept limits, because that was what humans did. They endured, and they never, ever quit. Alien cadets failed the endurance trial at Hour 6 and the human was on Hour 52 and still joking part. 1. The trial begins. The Galactic Military Academy's infamous endurance trial had broken warriors from 47 different species over its 3-century history. The chamber stretched for kilometers beneath the Academy's northern complex, a twisted labyrinth of psychological torture, physical exhaustion, and sensory deprivation designed to forge the galaxy's elite soldiers. Cadet Instructor Vexthar surveyed the nervous candidates assembled in the preparation bay. 12 species represented 24 cadets total. The reptilian Crovar stood on their powerful legs, scales gleaming under the harsh lights. The gaseous Nephil floated in their containment suits, already cycling their breathing apparatus nervously. The insectoid Thrain clicked their mandibles in what might have been anticipation or dread. And then there was the human. Cadet Hyun stood among them, notably smaller than most of the other candidates, wearing the standard-issue gray training uniform that seemed almost comically oversized on his lean frame. He was adjusting the straps of his hydration pack with casual indifference, occasionally glancing around the room with what Vexthar's translator interpreted as mild curiosity. "The endurance trial has a 92% failure rate," Vexthar announced, his voice reverberating through the bay. "The average completion time for those who succeed is 4 hours. The record is held by Commander Threk of the Crovar Dominion at 11 hours and 17 minutes. He paused, letting that sink in. "Most of you will not last 6 hours. That is not a failure. That is biology. Know your limits?" The human raised his hand. Vexthar's eye stalk swiveled toward him. "Yes, Cadet Hyun? Are bathroom breaks included in the time, or is that separate?" Several cadets made sounds that the translator rendered as nervous laughter. Vexthar's expression remained unchanged. "There are no breaks. Your suit will handle biological functions. Any other questions?" Hyun shrugged. "Just checking." The doors to the trial chamber hissed open, revealing darkness beyond. Begin. Part 2. The first 6 hours. The trial started simply enough. Complete darkness, minus 15 degrees Celsius, and a maze that shifted its configuration every 30 minutes. The cadets wore sensor bands that monitored their vital signs, broadcasting data back to the observation deck where Vexithar and his fellow instructors watched with clinical interest. Hour 1 saw the first casualty. A Nephil cadet's containment suit malfunctioned in the cold, forcing an emergency extraction. By Hour 2, 3 more had dropped out. 2 from hypothermia, 1 from a panic attack triggered by the claustrophobic passages. Hour 3 introduced the auditory hallucinations. whispers in the candidates' native languages designed to erode mental fortitude. A Thrain cadet began attacking the walls, convinced they were being hunted. Extraction Team 4 deployed. The human kept walking. On the observation deck, junior instructor Mirai leaned forward, studying Hyun's biometrics with growing confusion. His heart rate is relaxed. Instructor Vexthar, these readings can't be correct. He should be in distress by now. Vexthar examined the data. The human's core temperature had dropped slightly as expected, but his cardiovascular system appeared almost bored. Perhaps human sensors are miscalibrated. Make a note. Hour 4 brought the gravity fluctuations. The chamber alternated between crushing weight and near weightlessness every few minutes. 4 more cadets collapsed, their bodies unable to adapt. The remaining 11 pushed forward, including 2 Krovar who were theoretically built for this kind of punishment. Hour 5 escalated to active threats. Automated drones deployed into the maze, hunting the cadets with non-lethal but extremely painful shock weapons. The goal wasn't to harm, but to force decision-making under combat stress while already exhausted. One of the Krovar lasted until hour 6 before his respiratory system gave out. The other followed 20 minutes later, overcome by a combination of cold, exhaustion, and psychological pressure. When the 6-hour mark hit, only 3 cadets remained. A remarkably resilient Thrain named Kixelar, a cybernetically enhanced Nephil called Oshi in their reinforced suit, and the human. Vexthar activated the intercom. Attention remaining cadets. You have exceeded expectations. You may withdraw with honor at any time. The Thrain dropped 2 minutes later, collapsing mid-stride. The Nephil held on until hour 7. When their suit's power cells finally depleted in the cold, the human kept walking. Part 3. The Impossible Hours. This is unprecedented, Mirai said, staring at the wall of monitors displaying Hyun's position and vitals. Around her, a crowd of instructors had gathered, drawn by whispers spreading through the academy that something unusual was happening in the trial chamber. Hour 10. Hyun had been alone in the maze for 3 hours now, having surpassed the academy's all-time record 70 minutes ago. The trial's programming, designed to accommodate groups of diverse species, struggled to adapt to a single remaining participant. Perhaps we should end the trial, suggested Instructor Velk, a towering Krovar with ceremonial battle scars. The test's purpose has been served. The human has proven exceptional endurance. Negative, Vexthar replied. Cadet Hyun has not signaled withdrawal. The trial continues until he does or until his vitals indicate critical failure. On the monitor, thermal imaging showed Hyun's small figure navigating yet another shifting corridor. His movements were slower than they'd been at hour 1, but still steady. Still purposeful, is he? Singing. Mirai adjusted the audio feed. Through the speakers, Hyun's voice emerged, slightly hoarse but unmistakably cheerful. Humming some melody from his homeworld. Hour 15 brought a new element of discomfort. The Academy's programming staff had scrambled to implement additional challenges, never expecting any cadet to last this long. Electromagnetic pulses designed to cause disorientation and nausea now pulsed through the chamber. Hyun paused, steadied himself against a wall, then kept moving. Hour 20. Vexthar received a concerned communication from Medical Officer Dren. Instructor, human biology is not my specialty, but according to the Terran data files, this cadet should be experiencing severe sleep deprivation effects by now. Hallucinations, cognitive impairment, potential organ stress. What do his current readings show? Vexthar asked. That's the problem. They show he's tired, genuinely exhausted, but functional. This shouldn't be possible. On screen, Hyun sat down in a corridor for the first time since the trial began. The observation deck went silent. Was this it? Would he finally activate his emergency beacon? Instead, he pulled a ration bar from his pack, ate it methodically, drank from his hydration tube, then stood up and continued walking. Hour 25 passed. Then 30. At hour 32, Cadet Instructor Vexthar did something he'd never done in 2 decades of running the endurance trial. He entered the maze himself. He found Hyun at hour 33, sitting on the floor of a chamber with his back against the wall, eyes half closed. Cadet. Vexthar's voice echoed in the darkness. Hyun's eyes opened. Oh, hey. Is this part of the test, or are you here to tell me I won? The trial has been won for many hours, Cadet Hyun. Why do you continue? The human considered this, his face pale with exhaustion, dark circles under his eyes. I guess I wanted to see how long I could go. Also, I figured if I quit now, I'd be lying in my bunk thinking I could have done one more hour. He paused. That would bug me. You have been awake and active for 33 hours in hostile conditions. Yeah. Hyun smiled slightly. Want to hear a joke? Vexthar's translator struggled with the response his mind wanted to generate. A joke? Why don't aliens ever win at poker? I do not, because they always fold under pressure. Hyun laughed at his own joke, the sound slightly delirious but genuine. Cadet Hyun, I am officially ending your trial. You have exceeded all expectations and established a new academy record by a factor of 3. Can I ask one thing? You may. Can I walk out? I'd like to finish on my feet if that's okay. Part 4. The walking legend Hyun emerged from the trial chamber at hour 35, having spent the last 2 hours making his way through the maze to the exit with Vexthar accompanying him. Word had spread throughout the academy, and what should have been a routine trial completion had become something else entirely. 200 cadets and instructors lined the corridor, from the trial chamber to the medical bay, as the doors opened and the human stepped out, swaying slightly, his face drawn with exhaustion but still walking under his own power. The assembled crowd erupted. Species that had never agreed on anything found common cause in their astonishment. Even the normally stoic Crovar instructors were clicking their claws together in respect. Hyun blinked in the sudden light, confused by the reception. Did something happen? Is there a graduation ceremony today? That got genuine laughs from the crowd. In the medical bay, Dr. Dren ran a full biometric scan while Mireille and a dozen other instructors crowded the observation window. The results confused the medical staff even more than the performance had. His cortisol levels are elevated, as expected from prolonged stress, Dren reported, studying the data with increasing bewilderment. Muscle tissue shows fatigue. Neural activity indicates severe sleep deprivation. Everything suggests he should have collapsed hours ago. The doctor's tentacles gestured helplessly at the monitors. Yet his